The worst sentence my parents ever said to me came out so casually it almost sounded boring. No yelling, no drama. Just a flat voice on the other end of the phone while my son was sitting at the kitchen table holding his chest. If you've ever had a moment where you realize your entire life was built on a lie, you'll know the feeling I'm talking about. It was early, still kind of gray outside. The coffee I made had already gone cold. I remember that smell burnt coffee and something metallic from the heater kicking on. Caleb was hunched over the table. "Mom," he said, real quiet. "It hurts again. That sentence makes your brain go stupid." I swear it does. My name is Alyssa Morgan, and I am 32 years old. I'm a single mom. Been that way since Caleb was a baby. His heart condition showed up when he was 2 weeks old. Doctors explained it to me with diagrams and calm voices. Congenital defect. Surgery someday. Careful monitoring. You know how people say you get used to hard things? Yeah, that's kind of a lie, too. That morning, Caleb's fingers were shaking while he tried to sip orange juice. His lips looked pale. Not blue yet, but close enough that my stomach dropped. I grabbed my phone and called his cardiologist's office. They patched me through faster than usual. "Bring him in immediately." The doctor said, "Emergency cardiac unit." My car was sitting at a repair shop across town. Transmission shot. $2,900 I didn't have. So I called the only people I thought would help. My parents. My dad picked up on the second ring. "Dad," I said, "Caleb's having chest pain. I need your car. I just need to get him to Nationwide Children's." There was a pause. Then my mom's voice came on the line. Cold, flat. "We're not getting involved anymore." I thought I misheard. "Mom, he needs the hospital." Another pause. Then my father said it. "We don't care about you or your son anymore. Figure it out yourself." The line went dead. Behind me. Caleb slid off the chair and hit the kitchen floor. Caleb hit the floor harder than I expected. Not loud. Just a dull thud against the kitchen tile. "Mom," he whispered, gripping his shirt. "I can't breathe right." For a second, I just stared at him. Then my body finally caught up with my brain. Okay. We're going to the hospital," I said. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped my phone while pulling his jacket over his shoulders. I didn't even bother with my own shoes. Outside, the morning air was cold and sharp. My car should have been in the driveway. It wasn't. The mechanic had called the day before. The transmission was gone. $2,900 to fix it. Money I didn't have. I lifted Caleb into my arms and hurried down the steps. Mrs. Eleanor Hayes stood in her driveway in her robe, holding a coffee mug. She took one look at Caleb and set the mug down. "What happened, chest pain?" I said. "Doctor said emergency." She didn't hesitate. "Get in the car." "Eleanor." "I don't want to, Alyssa," she said firmly, unlocking the door. "Get in." The engine coughed to life. The heater pushed out air that smelled like old plastic. Caleb leaned against the door, breathing slow and shallow. Eleanor kept her eyes on the road. "You call your parents?" she asked. "Yeah. And they said they don't care." She drove another block before speaking again. "Well," she said quietly, "then it's a good thing you've got neighbors." We pulled into the emergency entrance at Nationwide Children's as nurses rushed out with a wheelchair. The cardiologist came out about 20 minutes later. His face was calm, the way doctors train themselves to be. "Your son is stable," he said. "We're running more tests." I nodded, even though my ears were still ringing. "Will he need surgery?" I asked. "Possibly," he said, "sooner rather than later." Then he walked down the hall. I sat in the plastic chair outside Caleb's room and stared at my phone. For a minute, I almost called my parents again. Habit, I guess. Instead, I opened my banking app. 3 years ago, when Caleb's first hospital bills started piling up, my parents offered to help manage the medical savings account. My father had worked in finance most of his life, so at the time it sounded reasonable. I trusted them. The account should have had around $42,000 saved for Caleb's next surgery. But when the balance appeared on the screen, the number looked wrong. $11,200. I frowned and refreshed the page, thinking maybe the app hadn't updated correctly. The number stayed the same. So I opened the transaction history. January transfer, $2,000. February, $3,500. March, $4,000. Each one marked with the same notes: temporary, short-term loan, will return soon. I kept scrolling, month after month. My hands started sweating in that hospital hallway, because suddenly the missing money wasn't a mistake anymore. Someone had been quietly taking it, and deep down, I already knew who. I kept staring at the screen like the numbers might somehow change. They didn't. $11,200. That can't be right, I whispered. My phone buzzed. A message from the hospital billing office appeared on the screen. Estimated surgical preparation cost $28,000. For a moment, I actually laughed. Not because anything was funny, just because my brain didn't know what else to do. I opened the transaction details again. Every transfer led to the same destination account. My father's. I zoomed in on the notes attached to each one. Temporary, helping family, will return soon. None of those were written by me. So I called him. The phone rang 3 times before he answered. Hello? You've been taking money from Caleb's account. Silence. Then he sighed. Alyssa, we already talked about this. No, I said quietly. We didn't. That money wasn't being used yet, he replied. We only borrowed it. It was for surgery. We were going to replace it. My stomach tightened. How much did you take? Around $30,000, he said. That's my son's heart surgery fund. You'll earn it back, he said flatly. I closed my eyes. Where did the money go? There was a brief pause. Then my mother's voice came through the phone. The casino. The word hung there between us. Cold. Ugly. And suddenly, the missing money finally made sense. I didn't sleep that night. Caleb lay in the hospital bed beside me, wires across his chest, the monitor giving that steady beep every few seconds. After a while, that sound gets stuck in your head. Early the next morning, I called the only person I could think of. Ethan Blake. Years ago, he had dated my friend Lauren. I remembered he was a lawyer, and right then that was enough. His office smelled like printer ink and burnt coffee. He studied the papers I brought with me: bank statements, transfer records, screenshots from the account. You gave your parents access to the medical account, he asked? Yes. Full access. Yes. He leaned back slowly. That makes the situation more complicated, he said. So they can just take it? I asked. No, he replied, but we have to prove how they used it. He kept flipping through the documents until he stopped on one page. Hold on, he said. What's this transfer? I leaned forward. 2 years ago. $185,000. That was Caleb's medical settlement after his first surgery. I said. My parents told me they would invest it until we needed it. Ethan typed something into his computer. A moment later, he turned the screen toward me. County property records, an address in Dublin, Ohio. That settlement money, he said calmly, was used as the down payment on your parents' house. I stared at the screen. You're saying they used my son's medical settlement to buy their home? Yes. Ethan closed the folder. Alyssa, he said quietly, this isn't just a family dispute. This is fraud. I drove to my parents' house the next afternoon. The place looked exactly the same. Big white siding, perfect lawn, the kind of house people point at and say, they must be doing well. Now I knew why. My money helped buy it. I knocked once. My mother opened the door halfway. Alyssa, she said, like I had just dropped by unannounced for coffee. We need to talk. She stepped aside. My father was sitting in the living room recliner, television playing some loud game show. Turn that off, I said. He frowned but grabbed the remote. What's this about? I pulled the folder from my bag and dropped it on the table. $30,000 from Caleb's surgery fund. My father rubbed his temples. We already discussed that. No, I said. We didn't. My mother crossed her arms. You're being dramatic. I opened the folder and slid the property record across the table, and $185,000 from the settlement. My father looked at the document. Then he looked at me. So you hired a lawyer? You used my son's medical settlement to buy this house. My mother sighed. That money was just sitting there. It was for surgeries. You would have wasted it anyway. My father said. I felt something inside my chest harden. Caleb might need open heart surgery this year. My mother shrugged. That's unfortunate. The room went quiet. You said you don't care about him, I said slowly. We don't, my father replied. He's not our responsibility. For a second, I honestly thought I might throw something. Instead, I laughed once. Short. Ugly. You didn't just steal from me, I said. You stole from a child who might not live long enough to forgive you. My father stood up. Don't come in here accusing us. I picked up the folder. No, I said calmly. Next time we talk, we'll be in court. Then I walked out of the house, and for the first time in my life, I didn't look back. Ethan called the next morning. I'm filing the complaint today, he said. I looked at Caleb sleeping in the hospital bed beside me. The heart monitor kept up its steady rhythm. Yes, I said. Do it. Ethan paused before speaking again. Once this is filed, everything becomes official. Your parents will see the evidence. Bank records, property records, all of it. They should, I said quietly. By noon, the paperwork was submitted. Fraud, financial exploitation, misuse of protected medical settlement funds. Heavy words. But they were accurate. That afternoon, my phone started ringing. My father. I let it go. Then my mother. Then both of them again. Eventually, I answered. What did you do? My father demanded. I filed a lawsuit. You're suing your own parents. You took money from your grandson's medical fund. That was family money, he snapped. No, I said. It was a medical settlement. My mother's voice suddenly came onto the line. Alyssa, this is completely unnecessary. You used $185,000 from a child's surgery fund. We raised you, she said. That doesn't give you the right to gamble his future. My father shouted something behind her. You're tearing this family apart, she said. I felt strangely calm. You already did that. Silence followed. Then my father came back on the line. You think you'll win this? Yes, I said. Across the room, Caleb shifted in his sleep. The only mistake I made, I added quietly, was trusting you. I hung up. A few minutes later, Ethan texted, court date scheduled, 3 weeks. For the first time in days, my chest finally felt a little lighter. The courtroom smelled faintly of old paper and floor cleaner. I sat beside Ethan at the table while my parents took their seats across the aisle. My father stared at the floor. My mother watched me like she didn't recognize who I had become. The judge entered and everyone stood. When we sat again, Ethan rose first. Your Honor, this case concerns the misuse of a medical settlement belonging to a minor child. He handed a folder to the clerk. $185,000 intended for medical care was transferred without consent and used as the down payment on the defendant's residence. In addition, approximately $30,000 was withdrawn from the child's surgical savings account. My father shifted in his chair. That's not the full story, he muttered. The judge looked over her glasses. You'll have your opportunity to speak. Mr. Morgan. She turned back to Ethan. Proceed. Ethan slid another document forward. The settlement agreement clearly states these funds were designated solely for the child's medical treatment. The judge studied the pages, then looked at my parents. Did you receive these funds? My father cleared his throat. We were helping manage family finances. That wasn't my question, the judge said calmly. A long silence followed. Finally, he said, "Yes." My mother leaned forward. "It was supposed to be temporary." The judge closed the folder slowly. "And when your daughter called asking for help during her son's cardiac emergency, my father answered first. We told her to handle it herself." The judge nodded once. "In that case," she said, "this court orders financial restitution and reassignment of the property obtained with those funds." My parents sat frozen. I didn't feel triumphant, just steady, like something that had been broken for years had finally been set straight. 3 months later, we were back at Nationwide Children's. The hallway smelled like disinfectant and warm plastic from the machines. That smell hits you the second you walk in. Caleb sat beside me on the hospital bed, swinging his legs. "You nervous?" I asked. "A little," he said. "You're tougher than I am." He smiled. "Mom." "Yeah, you won." "Right." I thought about that for a second. The court said the money has to come back. "So we can pay the doctors." "Yes." He nodded like that settled everything. A nurse stepped in. "Caleb Morgan." "That's me." He said. She smiled. "Ready for surgery day?" He looked at me first. Then he said, "Yeah." They rolled the bed toward the doors. Right before they took him through, he grabbed my hand. "Don't cry." "Okay, I'm not crying." "You will." The nurse laughed softly. "I'll bring him back to you," she said. Then the doors closed. I sat down in the chair outside the operating room. Hours passed. At one point, Ethan texted, "Restitution order finalized. Property transfer in process." I stared at the message for a long time. Money, houses, court orders. None of it mattered right then. The doors finally opened. The surgeon walked toward me, pulling off his cap. "Ms. Morgan," he said. My heart stopped. Then he smiled. The surgery went well, and for the first time in months, I could finally breathe. 6 months later, Caleb was running again. Not fast, not like other kids yet, but he ran across the small park near our apartment and shouted, "Mom, look, I see you," I said. The scar on his chest was still pink. He liked showing it off like a superhero badge. "Doctor said my heart's fixed," he told me. "Doctor said it's stronger." He nodded like that was even better. Ethan called me that afternoon. "The restitution payment started," he said. "Your parents transferred the first $50,000, and the house property ownership moved into the settlement trust." I leaned against the kitchen counter. "Good." He paused. "You ever talk to them again?" "No." Caleb walked in holding a soccer ball. "Mom, can I join the team this fall? We'll see what your doctor says." "Okay," he said. Then he hugged me quick and ran back outside. I watched him through the window. Here's the thing I learned through all this. Family isn't about who raised you. It's about who stands next to you when things break. If someone treats your kindness like a bank account, sooner or later you have to close it. I'm curious what you would have done in my place. Would you have forgiven them? Or walked away like I did? Either way, take care of the people who truly stand beside you. And if this story meant something to you, share it with someone who might need to hear it.